Harper Audio presents Inspector French and Sir John Magill's Last Journey by Freeman Wills Crofts, read by Phil Fox. Chapter 1. Scotland Yard. It was on Monday morning, the 7th of October, that Inspector French first heard the name of Sir John Magill. A commonplace name enough, certainly a name bearing no suggestion of exasperating mystery, still less of grim and hideous tragedy. All the same, there came a time when French might well have said of it, as Queen Mary is supposed to have said of that of Calais, that when he died it would be found graven on his heart. For the Sir John Magill case proved perhaps the most terribly baffling of all the baffling cases French had tackled. Never had truth seemed so elusive, nor had he been put to such shifts to capture it as during that long drawn-out inquiry. Never had his conviction been stronger that crime, ugly and sinister, lurked behind the activities he was investigating. Yet seldom had the proof that all was well seemed more convincing. In short, many times before the case dragged on to its inevitable and dramatic close, French found himself wishing nothing so much as that he had never heard of the unfortunate man who gave it its name. French had had a busy year. Since the night, now 13 months past, when he and Sergeant Carter had fought for their lives and the life of Molly Moran on the deck of that spectral launch in Southampton Water, he had handled no less than 5 major cases. Moreover, 4 months of the time had been spent with a score of associates in trying to trace the author of one of those terrible series of sex murders which every now and then recall the shuddering days of Jack the Ripper. By the time this unhappy madman had been laid by the heels, September was well advanced, and then had come the blissful break of French's annual holidays. He had spent it among the old-world towns and rocky hills of Provence. When he was tracing the movements of the pikes in the Bury-Port Dartmoor tragedy, he had worked along the French Riviera and up through the Rhone Valley to Lyon and Paris. He remembered that Jefferson Pike had recommended a stay at Avignon, and the night he had spent there on that investigation had convinced him of the excellence of the advice. Accordingly, this autumn he had made the old city of the Popes his headquarters. From there he and Mrs. French had explored the country by automobile excursion, had marvelled at the arenas of Arles and Nîmes, with bated breath had crossed the Pont du Gard, had seen medievalism in the walls and towers of Aigues-Mortes, had climbed through the sinister ruins of Les Baux. In short, as far as 14 brief days would allow, had steeped themselves in the enthralling atmosphere of Roman France. And now he had scarcely settled down to a winter's work when the name of Sir John Magill had flashed into his firmament as a portent of menace and evil. It was then, on Monday the 7th of October, shortly after French had reached the yard, that a telephone call summoned him to the room of his immediate superior, Chief Inspector Mitchell. With him he found a tall, well-built man, with that in his carriage, even as he sat, which bespoke the drill-ground. A strong, rugged face, a powerful jaw, and a pair of light blue eyes sparkling with intelligence showed that this was a person to be reckoned with. But, in spite of the suggestion of ruthless strength, there was a directness in the look and a good humour in the expression to which French felt immediately drawn. The man was quietly dressed in a suit of brown tweed. His grey Stetson hat and cloth overcoat lay on a chair, while on the ground beside him stood a brown paper parcel shaped like a cardboard hat-box. "Ah, French," said Mitchell. "This is Detective Sergeant Adam McClung of the Royal Ulster Constabulary, stationed at Belfast. He thinks we've let one of our problems slip over to Ireland by mistake, and he's come to see if he can't shove it back on us." Sergeant McClung glanced quickly at the Chief Inspector and then smiled. "I don't know, sir, that that's just the way I'd have put it," he said, in a pleasant voice, though with an intonation that was strange to French, half Irish, half Scotch it sounded. "Pleased to meet you, Mr. French. I've known your name for many a year, but I've never had a chance of speaking to you before." He held out an enormous hand, which closed like a vice on French's. "The sergeant—"
Sample complete. Ready to continue?